Hello and welcome. I'm Scott Martindale. This is my wife Vanessa, and we're the founders of Blended Kingdom Families. Today we have an amazing couple with us, Tony and Yolanda Banks, good friends of ours and wonderful blended family. Tony, a little bit of background on you. You were NFL quarterback for 10 years with the Ravens, the Raiders. No?
Rams, Ravens, Redskins. You had to.
Oh, I knew it was the R's.
R's.
I knew it was the R's. And so, amazing career. Currently coaching high school football. And Yolanda, tell us a little bit about you, or Vanessa will.
Yeah. So this is my wonderful friend Yolanda. She's an amazing woman of faith, mother to an awesome teenage boy who is actually friends with our son as well. Culinarian, cookbook author. She puts some amazing food out on social media, you guys. If you're not following her, you should, because it'll make you hungry. She's an awesome yoga instructor, sports enthusiast, and the executive director of child nutrition for IL Texas. So
quite a mouthful.
Yes,
Welcome.
Yes. So glad to have you guys here today.
Thank
so
you.
much more accomplished than me.
I know. I'm not really that accomplished.
Well, guys, first, we just want to, obviously, this is a podcast on blended families, so we want to just talk about what challenges do you guys face as a blended family with a teenage son?
Yeah, and so, guys, first, just tell us a little bit about you and your story and your blended family dynamic.
Oh, now he wants me to go. Well, we were divorced in 2011. Officially, we separated in 2010. And our divorce wasn't the product of, some sort of extramarital affair or anything nefarious. It just, we kind of grew apart, and I think ultimately became a statistic, which a lot of our friends and in the same field have kind of gone through after retirement. So we just found it a little bit challenging to coexist in the same household. But ultimately we wanted to make sure that we maintained a sort of family dynamic and did whatever we could to do that for our son, because he didn't deserve to be a product of divorce. And we wanted to make sure that we did whatever we could to instill that in him, that it was never anything he did.
Yeah.
Right, absolutely.
And we both come from single parent homes and different circumstances, but we kind of came to the same place after our divorce. And I think every couple says it, it's all about the kids. But because of my background with my father and how he was growing up, he always respected the fact that that was our home, and no other women or anybody else need to come in there and kind of rock the boat. And I think we both kind of had that same mentality. I think she started dating seriously, 3-4 years after the divorce. I'm still working on it. I'm still working on it.
Maybe it only seemed like that to him.
Well, let me ask you this. What challenges do you face as a blended family with a teenage son? I know a lot of our audience has kids that are in that range of maybe 11, 13, 14, 15 and on. So what challenges are you guys facing individually?
Especially, we have an only child. So, and one of my good friends always says, Deuce, he can play you guys, if you let him.
One against the other. Yes.
Yes, but I think the communication is key, because if something happens with our son, and I'll call him and I'm like, did he say this, or did you know this?
Yeah.
And so, we don't take everything. We take what he says with a grain of salt. So that we can be in one accord. I think that's something that we do pretty well. It's not always, ideal. I mean, we're not perfect. But I think the biggest thing is making sure that we are on the same page when it comes to, even, everything, even the minutia when it comes to co-parenting.
Yeah.
He'd rather not be on the same page with the minutia. He's like, just give me the big picture stuff.
Give me the highlights.
Let's get off the phone. We don't have to, discuss this ad nauseum like I do. But ultimately, I think it's because we communicate really relatively effectively when it comes to our son.
Absolutely.
And I think there were more challenges when he was younger. When we got divorced, he was 4 going on 5, something like that. So we didn't even use that word divorce, but at 4 or 5 years old, they don't really know how to relay their emotions, so they choose a side. And for the first year or so, Deuce kind of wanted to be with Daddy all the time, and that was, I know it was hard on her.
Very.
Sure.
Because she's a very involved mother. But I think one of the things that helped us progress is she just got to the point where she's like, you know what, I don't want to have him somewhere where he thinks he doesn't want to be. So he started, warming up to the idea of kind of splitting the homes. For a while though, it was hard because he couldn't really communicate why he was choosing. He was like, no, I want to go with Dad.
And so it was a democracy. I mean, we had our divorce decree and shared custody, but ultimately it was a democracy to my detriment, kind of, because I didn't want to be that one that's like, he doesn't want to be here.
Right.
You don't want that feeling.
Right.
And you are, and it is hard to not be the one to be there. But, Tony made it really like an open, he opened up his home so that like I didn't feel like I was, even if Deuce was choosing to be over there, I would still like come over there and make dinner, or we would still go to dinner, or we would still, so I was still not.
Even spent the night a few times.
So I was not uninvolved even in that dynamic, but it was something that we had to work through and something that neither of us really realized we would have to go through, because he was never like that as a son in our home together. He was very into both of us, but since he was retired, forced retirement, when Deuce was very young, he still had a nurturing side that, most dads maybe don't have the ability to kind of, involve, I mean, I guess.
Yeah, it wasn't just the fun dad, that wasn't the reason he was wanted to be with Dad. Like
one of the reasons,
one of the reasons,
But
But he had a lot more time too.
No doubt.
To spend.
No doubt.
a lot of time.
That's a huge, obviously for kids, the more time they get, the more attention they get, the more they feel gravitated towards that side. But the uniqueness about how you didn't, even though Deuce wanted to be here, the way that you guys made sure that didn't necessarily cut in or infringe on your time it's unique.
Yeah, we didn't adhere to like,
really
1 week on, 1 week off. We wanted him to kind of decide that. I mean, it put maybe at least my life on hold a little bit, but and hers too. But I mean, he's flourishing now, and
that's wonderful.
That's
he's
amazing.
Just a great kid, he's doing well.
Wonderful.
Love that. Love that. And so, Yolanda, I know you've said that you and Tony, you guys have a great friendship, and we see that. We see how well you guys co-parent together, and we've even made jokes about if we, didn't know you guys were divorced, we would still think that you were together, because y'all just do it with so much grace, and we just really respect that. We really admire that, because you really don't see that with blended families, especially in this day. And that's one of the things with the ministry that we really want to bring light to, is that you can coexist in peace and in unity with your ex-spouse and for your blended family. So what are some steps that you've taken along the way to build that friendship after divorce?
Well, I think one thing has been to, we have shared interests, so we know, like, if Michigan State's playing, I'm like, hey, you want to come over? And, I'm cooking dinner, you want to come over? And he'll, come over even, with my boyfriend and, Deuce, and, we'll all hang out, I'll cook and, watch a game together. Or prior to me having somebody in my life, it was just easy. I mean, I've known him for most of my adult life. And so even though we couldn't make it work, together, we still have a family dynamic. He's still close to my family. I'm still close to his family. And so I think that it wasn't for us, and everybody's circumstance is different. For us, it was just understanding, he still gets on my nerves, and so I still get on his nerves. There's things that you just can't overcome. But, you still understand that it's just easier to be friends. Like, it's so much harder, I feel, emotionally, physically, mentally on you if you just choose to kind of not coexist. I mean, to me, that would be more difficult, because I consider the fact that I have known he's a good person. Everybody loves him. And so I might as well, So we might as well just, make the best of what we have. And our son's only going to be, young for so long and with us for a short period of time. As I mean, it's like, oh my gosh, they're going to be in high school,
Yep.
So I want to just have this time be a positive one. And, and that's how I live my life anyway. So
Yeah, and it's such a good outlook to have.
Yeah.
So.
I think just priorities, like I mentioned, I think when we were talking before, like in my father's household, I was the priority, you know, and as I got older, I don't think I really respected it or loved it then. It was just, I'm living with my dad, that's what we do. It's the bachelor house. But having those priorities as I got older, I gained such a respect for my father. He's already a great man, but I gained so much respect that he kept that out of my life.
That's good.
So it was important to me to not put that in my son's life because it wasn't necessary. I'm not running the streets. So I think having those priorities helps our dynamic too, you know, because we weren't running out the front door as soon as we got divorced trying to find wifey number 2. I did think I would get married again. Now it doesn't look like it now. but
gotta first claim somebody before you.
Right. But I think those priorities really help,
Absolutely. Yeah.
So,
Because I think a lot of men that I know can't do that.
yeah.
Right.
They can't lay on their pillow by themselves at night.
Yeah.
Right.
They feel like a failure, which I got a ton of friends that way.
Yeah.
And they've been that way ever since we're in high school. So
Yeah.
I think I'm a little different that way because of my father, which helped our situation a little bit.
That's
Well,
good.
and I think that understanding how, because in the beginning of, it's divorce it's like a death in a way,
It is.
Absolutely.
of your former life and, of who you were. And so I think getting through the initial parts of that death, if you will, is important to try to understand who you are and try to get grounded in who you are.
Yes.
And for me, who I am and was as, a child of God, and, understanding that my joy needs to come from Him, not from
Absolutely.
somebody else.
That's good.
And that I'm okay, I'm not lonely being alone. Like I'm okay being alone without being lonely. Because I think a lot of people, that's where you're just like, okay, well, I'm lonely, especially when your son or daughter, your children are off at their, your ex's house and you're alone. You truly are alone, and trying to just navigate that being alone with, separating that from just being lonely. And it's hard. I mean, I think you have to be very intentional about it.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Well, and all those examples are amazing, and they're amazing qualities of what you can achieve. Obviously, the journey to get there is not always an easy one. It's always easy to look back and reflect and go, we did all these things right, and look where we're at. But there's always things that we do wrong too. So as you look, or maybe if you were giving advice to somebody who is either just starting this journey, so somebody who's newly divorced and maybe experiencing that loneliness, I would think of it more like quietness, which would be an awkward sound for me. Just the quietness of a house.
That many blessings.
But as you're giving advice to somebody who maybe just starting that journey, what would you tell them? What outlook would you give them? Maybe what resource would you give them to say, hey, this is where your mind needs to start going?
First of all, it's a marathon.
Yes.
It's not a sprint. So trying to really take it one day at a time, which has not always been easy for me because I've been like such a planner my whole life. And, oh, well, this is going to happen, when I'm 21, I'm going to do this, and 25. And then, and then God is like, oh, yeah, no, that's not going to happen. Yeah. So, you learn the hard way. Yeah. But I think leaning on faith, leaning on your faith, leaning on, having that foundation, on the rock and knowing that no matter what, God's in control.
Absolutely.
And trying to allow yourself some forgiveness about, because, when you are, a woman of God, a man of God, you do understand there's certain reasons in the Bible for divorce. And then, you may blame yourself. You may feel some shame or guilt because, you've made that decision to get a divorce, and how does God feel about it, and are you going to be forgiven, and how does everybody else look at you?
Right.
How do they perceive you? And we had always, I think, been for for a long time a couple that, as a married couple, that people, you know, looked up to his peers and the younger guys, you know, coming up of, you know, how to be married and, you know, in the NFL.
Right.
And we didn't have any kids when he was playing. So, you know, it was a different dynamic, and that, you know, the blessing of having, you know, a child that you want so much, you don't realize what that does to your relationship.
Right.
And I think for us, because it is a different dynamic with him being in the NFL and him being so, you know, revered and so much adoration and attention,
Yes.
that when we had our son, it was the same year we built a house, and the same you know, the same year he retired, essentially, or he, you know, was forced into retirement against his will, kicking and screaming. But that was not an easy transition, you know. And so for me, and then him being in the house all the time, and it's like, oof, like, don't you have something to do, something to go? And I did not do a good job of balancing being a mom and a wife. Like, I was so laser focused on like, you know, I got to keep this baby alive. I'm you know, breastfeeding for 9 months, and I don't, you know, I don't have time for you. And so I you know, I definitely take a lot of ownership in leading to the demise of the relationship, because he didn't have the attention of, you know, all those random people. He didn't have my attention, you know, and both of us were very hyper focused on our son, you know, to the detriment of the relationship.
I think that was probably our biggest challenge. That was, if you could pinpoint why we got divorced, it was, you know, during my career, I'm just happy-go-lucky, and, you know, I mean, obviously intense and pressure-packed and all that stuff, but after my career was over, like, we watched ESPN and sports together all the time, you know, and Food Network too, but but it got to the point after I retired, she couldn't even watch games with me because I'm angry. You know, like, she had never seen me angry at the game, or just angry, almost, it looked like for no reason. And so to me, that was her turning her back on me, because I kind of needed her, you know, for the first time. She had never really seen that part of me. I always been this, you know, kind of taking care of business. And so, but that was the big challenge for us as far as divorce goes. But when it comes to post-divorce, I think, again, it's just the fact that that our upbringing, for some reason, like, even, you know, there's some guys that don't have a father turn out to be great fathers, you know, so for whatever reason, it's just been such a huge priority for us to make sure because, I mean, whether you're growing up in the suburbs or inner city, it's tough for kids these days.
Very tough.
I think we made a valiant effort to make it as easy as possible for him, as much as we could. You know, we could shield him from everything, but it was such a huge priority for us to not make his life harder than it needed to be.
Absolutely.
So as you look at couples that are maybe starting the journey, knowing what you've experienced and knowing all these things, if you could sit down and go, hey, you know what? Focus on this. Focus on that.
For me, it would be focus not on your temptations. Right? That was a big part for me. Like, that I didn't make that a priority. Because they're out there, you know. And I'm still single now, so they're still out there. But again, that's what I do tell some of my friends that are getting divorced. Like, man, just if you're running the streets, keep it away from your ex and your kids. You know, just because, you know, the fact that my son told me up until 10, 11 years old, Dad, nobody loves you but me, because he didn't think I was dating. You know, so to me, I mean, it sounded sad, actually.
It is.
You're like, hey,
it is sad.
But to me, it was mission accomplished. You know, that's kind of what I set out to do. That he knows I'm all about him, not even about me. You know, to a certain extent, more about him. So, as sad as it sounded, you know, I still thought it was like, okay, I did what I
They're supposed to do.
Set out to do.
Absolutely.
Yolanda, what advice would you give?
You know, it might be easier said than done, but I just feel like the simple and straightforward advice is just kind of get over yourself. I mean, that's kind of hard to hear, but like, get out of your own way, get over yourself. If the act of having a child is very selfless, you know, and you realize, you know, it's not about you. When you have a child, you know, the moment that baby comes out, you're like, ooh, this is not about me anymore at all, you know? And so truly remember that, you know, when you became a parent, it stopped being about you. And
Yeah.
so it really needs to be the focus on
Yeah.
your child.
Children.
Yeah,
Yes.
absolutely.
And I think it helps. It's therapeutic, when you have something to pour your energy into as opposed to yourself.
Right.
Which, like I said, some of my friends
Yeah.
are all about themselves. Which, hey, everybody's different.
Yeah.
Sure.
But that's also they're having struggles in those
Yeah.
areas with their ex-spouse
Right.
and their kids.
Right.
Yeah.
So that's something we've never struggled with. Deuce is, goes where he wants to go, sleeps
Yeah.
where he wants to sleep for the most part.
It's wonderful.
Well,
Wonderful
and
advice.
and I want to say also, as a woman, take some time to get to know yourself outside of your
good.
marriage, because women are, an extension of the husband. And so when you're not in that relationship any longer, you do have to figure out who you are and be whole before you can even entertain anything else.
Yeah.
I mean, the whole notion of somebody completing you,
Yeah.
I mean, that's a great line, right?
McGuire.
Love that movie. But I think we need to be complete before
Yeah.
we can come into, two whole, complete individuals coming into the relationship,
Yeah.
making it that much better and that much more of a whole union,
Right.
So I just, in my experience with some of my friends, they go out and, you don't want to be alone and you trying to figure out who you are and you're bored or you're lonely or whatever the reasons may be, but really take some time to become whole
Yeah.
before you entertain anything else.
Well, and I see a lot of them, a lot of individuals. They go out looking for validation. They want to be revalidated.
Right.
Like, okay, this validation failed, so let me go out and find somebody to revalidate me, versus looking for God's validation.
Absolutely.
That you can go and receive freely.
Right.
And settle into that. It's wonderful advice.
Yeah, love that. And I love, when you were talking about identity, I was thinking about our true identity is in Christ, and Christ is in us. And when we can really grasp the weight of that, then, everything else just kind of falls away.
Yeah.
And so that's wonderful, guys. I love that. Yolanda, you're a strong woman of faith. And I just wanted to ask, how has your faith equipped you to handle the ups and downs of a blended family?
Well, I think in the way that it's equipped me just to handle life itself
Right.
is just to understand that, and I've learned this the hard way, being a reformed control freak. I think pretty reformed. I mean, I think God's done a good job at
Freedom there?
freeing me
Yeah,
of
she's
freeing me
not
of
as
some of my
OCD with French.
perfectionism.
Only me still, though.
Well, yeah, and they banter about that all the time. But yeah, I mean, I was very much, had a spirit of perfectionism and, wanting to be in control and control things. And I think that really probably a lot of it stems from my childhood. When you can't really control things that are going on, as an adult, you try very hard to control things and other people. And so I think God doing a work in me so that I can understand that I'm better off with him in control anyway, and I don't want to get to the point where we've all been to where God shows us he has to teach us a lesson in
Yes.
that, in who's in control. So I think,
Yeah.
leaning on God for not only, my joy, but understanding where my provision is coming from.
Yes.
My protection and just my, in a daily walk of doing whatever I can, my best, putting him first.
Yeah.
Yes.
And you could tell she made a concerted effort too to try to not be so controlling. You could tell she was working on herself. It wasn't like
That's
she
good.
was just gonna hope it happened.
Yeah.
You had to be actively involved in it. I was proud of her for that.
Thank you. He says the new Yolanda and the old Yolanda.
The new Yolanda. I love that.
Oh, the old Yolanda.
Yeah.
He would have never.
Well, what advice, guys, would you give blended families who might be struggling in their faith? Whether that's in the marriage, but ultimately, the marriage is what sets the example for the entire family. So if it's not strong in the marriage, it can bleed down into the family unit. So what advice would y'all give for blended families who might be struggling in their faith?
I think just similar to what we just said, like you have to actively be involved. Like when you're in a blended family or not, there's going to be somebody of the two spouses who might be a little more dedicated to their faith than the other person. So
Sure.
She's had to drag me a little bit, I'm not gonna lie, but it all ended up coming full circle because
Sure.
my son has a relationship with God that I didn't have growing up, and
It's amazing.
that's helped him not just be policed by us, you know. So it's just such a blessing when you kind of can see the light at the end of the tunnel. And it took me longer to get there maybe than her. But the advice would be, you just can't expect something miraculous to happen. You know, you got to be actively involved in it.
Right.
Have to actively pray. You know, and that's something we did together. You know,
That's awesome.
She still got to drag me sometimes.
Well, and yeah, I think piggybacking off of what he said, if you're able to have that dynamic within each other, that you can still have some accountability when it comes to your faith, and it doesn't have to be in your face of like, you didn't go to church or whatever. It could be just so simple as sending scriptures, and that's one thing. And I I like to encourage a lot of people, and in my friends, family, or what have you, with sending scriptures, and also just remembering just to pray, pray,
Absolutely.
ask for forgiveness, and you understand God's grace, so you're already forgiven,
Right.
because you simply asked,
Yes.
because you believed, and then you asked,
Yeah.
and so for me, it's always been getting that guilt, working through that, guilt that you feel, of, but then also extending, the prayer to, and even if they're your enemy, you still got to pray for them.
Yes. Yes. Yes.
There's a lot of people in that position where their ex is really truly their enemy.
Sure.
And so that praying for them, that's just going to heal you in the end.
Yep.
It's just going to free you from that burden.
Yep.
Absolutely.
No, that's really good. And, it's so true. Whenever we're blessing other people and actively praying for them, it's really hard to hold a grudge against them. And, in the beginning, you may not see the miracle working out, but knowing that God is doing that in the midst of everything, even when we can't see it, He is working that miracle out in front of us. And so just continuing to pray for them, not only will it bless you and refine your heart, but they will see that and see Christ in you, and then it can change everything after that.
Right.
Yeah.
I think it's the number one attribute of all successful, or one of the attributes that successful blended families can deploy. Just pray.
Yeah.
Pray for your spouse. Pray for your ex-spouse. It is such a healing ministry in healing your own heart. And I just think it's an amazing resource that we should all be using.
Definitely.
Well, and that's still the father of your child, the mother of your child.
Yep.
Yeah.
So you want them to be living it out,
Yeah.
Yes.
as best they can, so that you can raise a whole child.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Absolutely.
I agree.
So, Yolanda, tell us 3 things that you love about co-parenting with Tony. 3 things.
Just 3?
And we have
Just
time.
3?
We have time if you need to
we
think
have
for a
time.
while.
Yeah, it's
3 things you love about
Can we take a
co-parenting.
break
Pick
real
the 3
quick?
out of the 30.
So he can tell me what to say. So, I mean, I think one thing is annoying as I sometimes find it. He is like super aloof, and and I'm not like that at all. So it can, he can help me like not take myself or things too seriously. Which sometimes I found it very annoying, but he does make it a little bit easier. Like, oh, it's okay, if I'm like,
good.
well, Deuce, he didn't turn his assignment in, and he didn't do this, and did you check Schoology? And I'm like, send him screenshots and send him Deuce screenshots. And he's like, just, just
He's
relax.
at school. Let's talk to him when he gets out of school.
Just relax, because this is this is happening during school, and I'm like, wait, did you see? And if I'm out of town, I'm like, did he study? Did you do this? Did you do that? And so him being the laid back person is actually kind of a good thing in this dynamic.
She's never said that.
It's on film.
Need
now.
to do more. Than
Y'all can go back and watch this.
Make sure.
I take it back.
Take a screenshot.
And then the second thing is, I think, he loves our son more than anything in this whole world.
Yeah.
So it's hard not to appreciate him because of the love that he has, for our son. And his whole goal in life was to be as good of a dad as his dad is. And, people know him as being an amazing dad. Like that's one of the things he's known for, and that is what he wanted to be known for, even though he might forget it, leave his sweatshirt somewhere or whatever.
I won't leave him.
Okay.
Yeah, I won't leave him.
He's got him.
And then the third thing,
Reach for this one, huh?
no, it's a really interesting question. I'm curious to hear what he has to say.
He has to go next. So,
Yeah.
Just 2, huh? That's all you got?
Maybe can you come back to me?
Come back to the last one. Tony, same question.
I think
What do you
first
enjoy?
and foremost, it's a good question, but I think first and foremost, even though we're not divorced, she shows she loves me.
We're not divorced?
I mean, even though we're divorced, she shows she loves me.
Surprise.
By staying on me. It sounds simple, but making sure I pay my bills because I am a little aloof and can be a little too laid back sometimes. Making sure I go to the doctor. Her and Deuce just ganged up on me to go get my brain and body from the NFL, which I've been putting off for probably 10 years. So.
Good.
Just things like that where she shows she still cares. It's not the love of a wife, but we have a special friendship that I never would have expected, and it makes things a lot easier. And the second thing, that kind of yin and yang, I think I need it, like my son needs it. Because, we both, how's it? Oh, he gets that from you, he gets that from you. Like we do that, we do that. And I don't want him to be as laid back as me, but I also don't want him to be as intense as her, So that yin and yang, I think, helps us. Like she's able, now that we're not a couple, I think she appreciates maybe some of those moments. And, and our communication is good. And that's probably the third thing, is that I can't stand talking on the phone. It is like a big deal for me to answer the phone. If you call me, I won't answer.
You have before.
Anybody calls me
once.
Maybe if my son was at your house, I'd probably answer.
That was the reason.
And it's, I don't want people to take it personal, but I mean, when I got to the NFL, every time my phone rang was somebody wanted something. Somebody wanted money, family, friends, whatever it was. So it just got to the point every time it rang, it's just like, ugh. But she calls me multiple times a day, whether Deuce is with me or not, and I answer, And she knows this. She's probably the only person I answer the phone for, at least consistently. So, and it's because I respect her, And I know it's usually something I need to do for myself or for my son. It's not, she never calls to say, hi, how you doing? It's like, hey, how you doing? By the way, you got to do,
I would love that.
That's awesome.
That's awesome.
I love that.
Okay, so then I'm going to say the communication thing.
Yeah.
Okay.
The communication thing.
Yep.
And you guys do an amazing job of that. We've been friends for 6 years. Our sons have been friends, and just seeing you guys interact with one another, I mean, it's given us hope because we've walked through hard seasons in our blended family, and we just admire you guys, and we're just so thankful to have that friendship and just to have that example. Y'all set a great example, and just so thankful for that and blessed by it.
Well, and I think everybody who's listening and the people who struggle in blended families, they all want some type of hope of, can it be better? Can my ex-spouse and I have a relationship? Can our children be in a healthy co-parenting relationship? And the answer is yes. And we've seen that consistently over time, and y'all are a great example of that. But it also relies on the fact of Christ being in that mix. It relies on grace. It relies on the hope that Christ gives us that, hey, we're not perfect. We're not going to be perfect. The only perfect love is Christ. And if we can somehow surround our blended family or our marriage, our ex-spouse around that Christ-centered love, it's possible. And just having a little bit of hope in some cases is just everything. Just everything.
Absolutely.
If I can just have some type of hope that it can get better, some type of hope that that my children will have a great childhood, that's going to be enough. So we appreciate you guys for coming in, sharing your story.
I have one last question.
Yes, you do.
I did one
Yes.
last question. So you guys, so the ministry, so for Blended Kingdom Families Ministry, our mission statement is we want to equip people that are in remarriages and insert Christ into the middle of the blended family unit, so that people can have that unity and have that abundant blended life. Because I think so many of us in blended families, it's like a survival thing. It's like we're just trying to survive and get through it. And that's not the way that Christ calls us to live. And in fact, in John 10:10, it says, the enemy has come to steal, kill, and destroy, but I have come that you may have life and have it abundantly. And so I just want to get your thoughts. What to you would be the abundant blended life?
I think about us going to church together, us three. You know, whether he's at my house or her house, we meet at church, and
I love that.
It's so difficult. Like, I don't care whether you're a blended family or not. To me, it's so difficult to walk out of church angry.
Right.
It's very
or
hard.
have anxiety and have tension.
Yeah.
So I really appreciate the fact that we're still able to do that. Now,
That's
that
incredible.
is also made because of her boyfriend is, a decent dude and doesn't get overreact to us doing those things together, because honestly, I don't, that's important to us, so it's probably important to him.
Yeah.
And that helps. She was diligent with her picking a boyfriend.
That's good.
And it does help. It really
Yes.
helps, because I have a little bit of a temper, and she knows, and so she wasn't too anxious for me to meet him at first. But it's worked out, and I think that's part of her being selfless. Part of her
That's good.
spirituality, part of her faith.
Absolutely.
That's awesome.
I'm an abundant blended family. For me, I think it just means that everybody understands the number one focus, and that's, to put God first before ourselves. And everything else just really, I think, falls into place once you do that.
Yeah.
And everyone is fulfilled, because we all are working towards that same common goal of just, and I always have the saying, other people's opinions of me are none of my business, but God's is the only one that matters.
Yes. That's good.
So if I'm doing right by him, I'm going to be doing right by everybody else who
That's good.
ultimately, matters. So
Yes.
Awesome.
Awesome. Love it.
Well, guys, thank you so much for being a part of our ministry. And again, we just thank you so much for your hearts and for your life. And we're excited for your journey. So thank you guys so much for being with us, Vanessa and Scott Martindale for Blended Kingdom Families. And hope you have a wonderful and blessed day.
Be blessed in all you do, guys. Love you.